ancestor that had put a replacement on it, silver or gold. It's a typical thing you will do to somebody. You don't want him to be an emperor. An emperor has to be complete. So we're just taking up his eyes, the ear or the nose is incomplete, he cannot rule. So people go with a replacement. These things were all discovered in the sanctuary of Asclepius. Asclepius is a healer god of the Greeks. He's the one god that has a symbol. We can actually see a small statue of the god there. Unfortunately, we're missing the most interesting feature, which is a rod with a snake calling him around, which is still the symbol of medicine. Well, not the rod anymore, but the caduceus. Rod in Greek is called bacteria. That's why I call them bacteria. Small rod-like thing you see in a microscope. They use the snake as a symbol of medicine for basically 3 reasons. One is a symbol of wisdom coming from the earth, and the doctors were using herbs and things of the earth to cure you at the time. The other reason is that from snakes you can have you have poison, and from poison you can have antidotes. Now, poison in Greek is 2 words. It's either deleterion, hence the word deleterious, or you press delete and it's gone, or pharmakon, hence pharmacy. Just think of how we use in English the term drug. You can, depending on the quantity or the use you do, it's either a good thing or a bad thing. It's the same thing with pharmakon, the poison. The other reason for using the snake was that it's a symbol of death. That's not necessarily an evil thing, but it seems that quite a few times the doctor was the last person they would see. That was it. Asclepius had a very interesting story because he was born a man. He was a son of a god and of a woman, that until that day was a virgin, of course. And he became such a successful doctor that one day he managed to raise a person from the dead. And that's when Zeus killed him immediately. But the Greeks started worshipping him and he became a god. So that's all Greek mythology, but in the end he was the only god that was born a man and he had suffered death. So he was the one that had the better understanding of the human nature and the human fears. Or the only one that sometimes is even depicted smiling. Greek gods were not bad, were not evil, but they're always severe looking. This one sometimes, no, was even friendlier. So what happened with the cult of Asclepius is this. His sanctuaries were considered to be medical centers. At a time which the doctors were kind of faith healers, something like that. Later on, hypocrisy became completely scientific. But for centuries, it worked like this. If you are injured, ill, you go to a sanctuary of this god, you make a sacrifice to be purified because it's sacred grounds where you're entering. You spend the night in a building called kimeterion, meaning dormitory, hence the word cemetery today. That's an interesting thing. We use the term graveyard for the pagans, and it's cemetery, dormitory for the Christians. Because you will rise again. And then in your dreams, Asclepius would come and have this conversation with you. And next morning you had to say to the priests what this conversation was about, because they believed that the god himself was hinting at the cure. Now, the whole thing has a terrific placebo effect in psychosomatic illnesses, but we know that they were good doctors. Now, the thing with the links here is that it's either people that want to show to the god what is wrong, or they want to thank him for being healed in that particular part of their body. When it comes to these legs, we're not exactly sure what was wrong. Is it an injury, like a broken bone? Is it rheumatism? Is it a skin infection? You cannot really tell. We can only tell the difference between a man and a woman. It has nothing to do with race. It's just the color. Dark always for men, white always for women. It's the whole idea of the fair lady that goes back to those days. That is, a woman from a respectable family, respectable, you read, wealthy family, would not need to work in the fields. So she would not be santanned. So it's something you find around the Mediterranean. Now, in Northern Europe, makes no sense, everybody's fine. Here you can tell the difference a lot. Somebody working out and somebody not working. When it comes to, for example, breasts, it can be anything from problems at breastfeeding to cancer. When it comes to things like the earlobes there, is it a skin infection? Is it a wound? Is it otitis? Is it sometimes when they come in pairs, like ears and eyes, we think that maybe he's simply getting older and losing his vision and his hearing. But when it comes to genitals, which can be anything from UTI to venereal diseases, it's infertility only when it comes to women. Men were immune to that. It was always a woman's fault. That's what they believed back then. The baby. Problems of fertility, problems at childbirth. That's a very good option because that was probably the most difficult moment in the life of a woman in those days. Look at number 49, that palm over there. You can see a tumor. on the upper parts. The interesting thing is that in quite a few parts around the Orthodox world, this tradition still persists. You can find, for example, icons of healing saints, in which people would go there and give, instead of limbs made of clay, golden or silver plaques with a depiction of their problem, which can be a member of the body, a baby, there's a problem, etc. If you look at the plan of the sanctuary, which is further down, it's not possible to visit. At the very center there's a temple, but then on the right we have quite a few rooms that had couches inside. Now we know that the ancient Romans and the Greeks were always reclining on these couches, so we're talking about, if you can use the term, kind of a restaurant. It works like this. If you're miraculously healed, first of all, you're going to write down everything in a stone plaque to advertise it. That's the advertisement of the sanctuary. And then maybe you're